You gentlemen ready here?
We are ready.
Excellent.
Go ahead.
All right, here we go. Good afternoon. I'm Tavis Buchan. This is another edition of The Green Commuter on 89.1 FM, The Lakeshore, listener-supported public radio. And now your host, Carl Lissek.
Well, good afternoon, Tavis. How are you?
I'm doing well, Carl.
Well,
great to have you back.
Thanks for having us. And good afternoon, Chicagoland. My name is Carl Lissek, and I'd like to welcome you to The Green Commuter. On The Green Commuter, we focus on a variety of green topics and bring you the latest information on green technology and transportation in northern Indiana. This program features many of our environmental leaders throughout the Chicagoland area and the nation. The Green Commuter is sponsored by South Shore Clean Cities, of which I am the executive director. South Shore Clean Cities is a U.S. Department of Energy government-industry partnership that works to reduce foreign petroleum consumption in the transportation sector. Today, our guest is Mr. Jerry Carducci, the alternative fuel consultant from Community Honda of Orland Park. Jerry, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Carl.
Well, Jerry, I know you've been a sponsor of our show for quite a while, so I wanted to say thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. Very welcome.
And Lakeshore Radio has been, again, a great supporter of what you're doing. So just why don't you give our listeners a little bit of background about Jerry Carducci?
Well, I've been with Community Honda for 10 years. My background comes in the corporate world, and I've done for a lot longer than what I've cared to admit to.
Sure.
But I've been with Community Honda for 10 years, and for the last year and a half been spearheading their efforts in the alternative fuel arena, specifically with compressed natural gas.
Okay. And when we talk about compressed natural gas, tell our listeners a little bit why Honda's really been the leader with compressed natural gas vehicles.
Well, Honda has their environmental mission, which is basically to promote and to develop alternative fuels for the marketplace. For the last 15 years, the compressed natural gas Civic has been out in the West Coast primarily, Texas, Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma, and also onto the East Coast.
I see.
In January of 2012, Honda introduced it to 35 more states, Illinois being one of them, as well as the rest of the Midwest, Indiana, Wisconsin, and the like. So I was elected. I guess what they did was when we had the Saturday morning meetings and they said we need a volunteer, everybody else stepped backwards, and I looked around and I was up front.
Well, we're glad you raised your hand on that one, Jerry.
Right.
That's great. So why did Community Honda get involved with natural gas?
Well, twofold. First, from a social standpoint, I mean, social responsibility is a big thing now with a lot of organizations as well as communities and counties and that. And we believe in Honda's environmental mission, and we also wanted to be a forerunner in that arena. When we first began this 18 months ago, there were actually 5 dealers in Illinois that were certified by Honda.
I see.
You have to go through a certification process. 2 have since dropped out. Okay. This is really a divergence from the normal retail type of environment that auto dealers are accustomed to.
I see.
And the sales process is more iterative. It's more consultative, and it takes time. There's a lot of time you spend. You have to be an all-around expert, so to speak, in all the facets. You have to understand the natural gas industry. You have to know and understand all the different incentives that are out there, in addition to your vehicle. You have to know where fueling stations are, where they're coming up. You have to keep up on all the latest in terms, and it's a challenge to do so.
I believe it is because, again, we do this every day, and just some of the great changes that have happened in the Chicagoland area with compressed natural gas. And I know one of our members, and then another one of your allies has been Ozinga, who had worked that you've worked with, providing them with some Honda equipment. So, what are some of the challenges? We've had different folks on the show talking about some of the implementation that they've done with vehicles, but they've been more fleets, and I know you're more of on a consumer market. And so what are some of the challenges that that you face with Community Honda of trying to get this word out and trying to educate people?
Well, and that's primarily it, is education. It's a bit of the cart before the horse. insofar as the car is there, but the infrastructure isn't.
Sure.
And when we looked at it over the last 18 months, what we saw was that there was a lot of retail interest, a lot of it coming from the border towns and villages in Indiana as well. And what happens there is that you spend a lot of time just educating because people have heard of it. Maybe they've done a little bit of online, and now you have to really take them through the kind of the mechanics of it. The first question you get is where do I fuel it?
Sure.
And that has been the toughest one to answer because there's limited fueling stations in the Chicago area. However, those are growing. And you mentioned Ozinga. Ozinga has opened up 2 stations, the one on 22nd Street, the one down in Mokina, which is about 2 miles from where
your dealership,
our dealership is located. They're opening another one here in Gary.
Right, and we're excited about that also here.
And I am too, because that opens up this market for me as well.
Sure.
And they're also building one up in Des Plaines, as I understand it. So, it's the focus is now on developing infrastructure, and the way we've chosen to develop infrastructure is to look at the fleet market.
Sure. And
to get people to break down the silos in terms of and start working together with local with the utilities and with other companies such as Ozinga that are opening up fueling infrastructure capabilities.
Sure. You mentioned that Honda has been in the natural gas market for 15 years.
Right.
And so why don't you tell our listeners some of the advantages of a natural gas vehicle?
Well, the advantage of there's 2 types of natural gas vehicles. I mean, you have those that are factory built. You have those that are factory built gasoline or diesel and then are converted. And those that are to either biofuel or a CNG only.
Okay. When you say biofuel, just explain to our listeners what that means.
The biofuel means that they will run both on gasoline and compressed natural gas. And typically, when you look at those are pretty much your F-Series Fords, your GMCs, and the Silverados and that. And they tend to offer some longer driving ranges because now you have the combined driving range of the gasoline and you have the driving range of the compressed natural gas. In the case of a dedicated vehicle, you have the power that's there. You don't lose any, whereas in a conversion on a biofuel, you'll tend to lose 3 to 5% of the original performance of the vehicle. Dedicated will give you 100% performance. It's cleaner burning, quieter. I think a lot of people have cited Ozinga's trucks that they could hear them from 6 or 8 blocks before, and now the new ones, they don't hear them until they turn the corner. The same thing with the disposal. Homewood Disposal is another one that is running some of their trucks on natural gas as well. So they're quieter. They are more fuel efficient. They have less. The engines require less maintenance. You don't get the carbon buildups. You had extended oil life in them, and they also reduce emissions as well.
And which is a big thing for the Chicagoland area because of our ozone action days and just some of the different types of regulations that are impacted because of our poor air quality here in Chicagoland area.
Yeah, in the area, and that includes the northwestern Indiana and that as well. And that's one of the reasons why we chose to. First, we're the only dealer that supports this area that's certified by Honda for these cars, but I commute through here. My wife and I commute through here to go up when we go up into Michigan and that, and we see it every day. My dad used to work in the steel mills, so I mean we fully aware of what the issues are here, and so it's a way to help the communities that we serve, and we serve a lot of customers in Northwest Indiana and Southwestern Michigan as well.
And so some of the options with natural gas with the natural gas Honda. Can you talk about just a little more about some of the advantages of, say, someone that was interested in a natural gas Civic?
Okay.
Why don't you tell our listeners a little more?
Absolutely. Well, it's been around again. It's been around for 15 years. 1998, Los Angeles was the first city that actually leased them. Okay, and put them into service. They quickly grew in use in California, particularly because of all the environmental issues that they had. It's won a number of awards for the cleanest car for 9 years running.
9 years running. That's an amazing feat.
It is. It is. They're built here in Indiana, by the way.
Yeah,
down in Greensburg.
A lot of people don't even realize that.
People
Jerry.
don't realize that. So we do contribute to the economy of Indiana in doing so. They're again are quiet. I drove one out here today, and my experience with driving them is, well, fuel economy wise, they match up well with the regular gasoline Civic. I averaged 45 miles a gallon coming here, and that includes the local driving on both ends. So,
and talk about you're talking about the car itself, and now 45 miles to the gallon. What did you pay for your natural gas?
Well, our natural gas is pumped internally.
Okay.
So we're doing equivalent of probably about $1 a gallon.
$1 a gallon.
$1 a gallon equivalent. Noticing some of the fuel prices coming out in Illinois, for example, they're down depending on where you're looking. They're somewhere in the 370, 380 range. Again, depending on where you're at. I saw some in the 365. But in Illinois, the average price there in the Chicago area is about $2.66 a gallon equivalent.
I see.
Okay, for natural gas, so it's about $1 less. Here it may be a little bit different. When you compare it to diesel and biodiesel, it's another story. Now natural gas is about $1.40 to $1.60 a gallon less. So from the standpoint of an 8-gallon tank, which is what's in the Civic, I mean, you have a lot of there's a lot of savings there to be had in terms of fuel. And which is all driven by the number of miles you drive, depending on how you drive.
Sure, and I know you are a very cautious driver, Jerry. I've seen you drive.
I was at highway speeds, keeping up with traffic. I wasn't.
You're an eco driver, Jerry. I know that. I know that. So, we're talking about natural gas, and some of the barriers to implementing more vehicles. What do you think some of those might be?
The biggest thing I think is education in terms of barriers. I think that when you stop and you look at, and I attended a lot of the electric vehicle forums and that because I viewed them as being somewhat of a competitor there. There was a lot of effort and a lot of initiatives there that actually went to educating and make public awareness. When I look at natural gas, there really isn't any, which is one of the reasons why we joined Chicago Clean Cities, we joined South Shore Clean Cities, and that is to get more involved with that and help spread the word. So education is a really big key. The second piece, again, is infrastructure. That is slowly developing, and hopefully, I think we're about 3 to 5 years away from anything stronger in that area.
One of the big things that we hear about is it's change, and then part of it is not only the infrastructure, but where are we going to service these vehicles after they are on the roads? And I know that you're a certified Honda dealer, but what do you see like the future will hold for maybe potential job opportunities, economic opportunities for people that begin to make these conversions, even just for mechanics? I mean, some of our schools to offer mechanic training on compressed natural gas. And
Ivy Tech has resurrected some of their programs now. Certainly, yeah, there's a lot of, from the standpoint of the entire industry, there's a lot of job opportunities. And I think from a technician standpoint, that as use of these vehicles grows, there's going to be positions that are going to be required into dealerships. I mean, even in the Ford dealerships and that to handle their the conversion vehicles and the biofuel vehicles, they will take maybe a different type of maintenance than say ours does. And that, but there is the training that has to go on, and it's an investment in doing that. And there's a lot of that I think that's going to come down. Specifically in terms of dollars and cents, I'm not in a position to answer that, but I can see that coming down the road.
Sure.
This is a huge industry about ready to burst, is the way I look at it.
And Jerry, before we go to break, why don't you give our listeners more information on how they can get a hold of you, the website for Community Honda?
Sure. Our website is www.communityhonda.com. I can be reached at Jerry C., that's Jerry with a J, C, at communityhonda.com, or I can be reached by phone at 708-364-2600, extension 2015.
And you're listening to the Green Commuter here on 89.1 FM, the Lakeshore. I'm your host, Carl Lissick, and we'll be right back with Mr. Jerry Carducci of Community Honda. Welcome back to the Green Commuter here on 89.1 FM, the Lakeshore. I'm Carl Lissick of South Shore Clean Cities, here to bring you the latest information on green technology and transportation in Northwest Indiana. My guest today is Mr. Jerry Carducci, alternative fuel consultant for Community Honda of Orland Park. So, Jerry, we're talking just a little bit about, electric vehicles, and, one of the programs that we're involved with here locally is in-home charging stations. And, there's a lot of talk going around the nation on electric cars, in-home charging stations. Tell our listeners a little bit about in-home charging stations for natural gas vehicles.
Okay, there is a unit out now. It's a Phil P36.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's a home. It's the only refueling station that is certified for indoor use. It place it in the garage. There's a lot of considerations that have to be taken into effect when you do that. They're a bit expensive right now. They're around $4,500 or so. There are others out there that are on the market that people can buy on the internet. They certainly aren't as reliable as I understand it.
Mm-hmm.
We have one of those units actually in at the dealership that we use to fuel our cars.
I see.
They are slow fill.
When you say slow fill, what does that really mean?
They fill at a rate of about a half of a gallon equivalent per hour. So
okay.
to fill an 8-gallon tank that is broaching empty, you're looking at about 16 hours.
Okay, so basically it's an overnight filling.
It's an overnight
mm-hmm.
fill, and so it's one that people tend to shy away from because of, one, the added cost, and second, the variable. The variable being the installation cost. The installation can vary depending on where gas supplies are located within the house, whether it's in an adjoining wall to the garage or
mm-hmm.
not, and where their breaker box is at. And so it could be a few $100s, it could be $1,000.
Okay.
And that's a big variable. And people just don't want to. They have to actually do the coordination. The units are installed by either a heating, air conditioning, or a plumbing contractor, one of the two.
Mm-hmm.
And that they require dedicated 220 lines and with shut-off switch and all that. They have a 4-stage filtering system in there,
mm-hmm.
Automatic temperature compensation. They will automatically recheck themselves every 2 hours during operation. They have automatic shutoffs. There are sensors that have to be put in all over to detect leaks and those types
okay.
of things.
So again, it's just it's change. It's just different things that are going on.
It's huge.
Yep.
And I know that GTI is
Gas Technology
Institute
mm-hmm.
is working on some things with. I don't know that it's public exactly who they're working with, and I won't mention it. I don't know that I'm allowed to mention it, but I know that they are working with something that's a lot lower cost and a lot easier to use. But they're probably 2 or 3 years out from all the testing and development right
sure.
now.
And Gas Technology Institute is located in Des Plaines, Illinois, and it's one of our partners that we're working on with a major grant here in the Chicagoland area on the barriers on the implementation of alternative fuels. So there's more information you'll be hearing about that as our shows progress throughout the years. So I know there's some new laws coming out with engines, and there's various changes coming out with CAFE standards with vehicles and stuff. And let's get more back towards the car and how is Honda dealing with all these various changes with?
Well, the most pronounced that's coming out most recently is the Tier 3 environmental, which is basically the California standards. Fortunately, all the Honda products, including the natural gas, are built to meet all the toughest standards.
So no more changes. They don't have to do any changes.
No more changes. Absolutely. We are compliant with those standards already.
Sure, that's big. It's
huge.
Yeah. Talk about some of the color. I mean, when someone, I've seen the cars, I've driven the cars. People think that these cars that run on alternative fuels and the natural gas vehicles look different. Talk about some of the options, the colors of these vehicles, and
sure. Well, first, if I were to have taken the badge off the car, which is the natural gas badge and the big NG emblem off there, nobody in the parking lot would be able to tell the difference between that and another Civic that was sitting next to it. Okay, they ride and they handle just like any other vehicle does. The color availability, they're in limited colors. They come in white, which is pretty much a standard for fleets. But they also come in a silver, which Ozinga prefers. They come in a gray, dark gray, and they also come in a lighter blue. So they have made some change. They are making some changes in color for going forward here in 2013 and 14 models. But
so the interiors, the options for the interiors, you've got navigation systems, you got the same radios.
Exactly.
I mean, it's basically it's a normal car that anyone would operate.
Anyone would operate. You have Bluetooth in there. You have in the 13 models there are backup cameras in there now that are standard on the Honda products. So from a safety standpoint and from a feature standpoint, it handles no different than any other vehicle. Which
leads to the next question. I mean, people are concerned about, because of our ignorance, it's very normal that, when we have change, but, with compressed natural gas vehicles or any alternative fuel vehicle, they're worried about safety. Talk about safety of the Honda Civic.
Sure. Well, from a safety standpoint, they're all 5-star rated. Okay, so like any other Civic or Honda product, they come with the highest ratings. They've like the other products that have been tested by the Insurance Institute recently, the offsets. They pass with the highest, with the good rating, which is the highest rating you can get. They come with all the typical anti-locks and those types of things, brake systems, and that. From the standpoint of the fueling tank, it's a Type 3, and there's 4 types. It goes from a Type 1 to a Type 4, and a Type 3, and it's aluminum encased with carbon fiber.
I see.
Okay, they've been tested. It was part of the certification I had to go through as a sales consultant. Is you had to go through and you had to witness and see all this stuff, and they've been tested under very, very extreme conditions. I do have to say that I have seen pictures of some very severe rear-end collisions involving Civic natural gas. The tanks have not ruptured, and part of that is good. I mean, that's all good, but another part of it is had they had ruptured, there's only a small window in which natural gas will ignite.
Okay,
and so you have to have the exact right mixture of air and gas in order for the fuel to actually to ignite, which is a lot smaller proportion than it is for
normal
like
gasoline,
diesel, and the like.
And see, I think that's one of the things that people really don't realize. Again, it's change. We're starting to see more of these vehicles on the road, and so I know this is a question that you might not have a good. But what do you think is the one thing that, as a consumer, that they least understand about a compressed natural gas Civic?
I think basically they're leery right now. I mean, one of the questions that I get is, how dedicated are you as a dealer, and how dedicated is Honda to stay in the market? Well, the Honda staying in the market is kind of easy, 15 years.
Sure.
How dedicated are we as a dealer? We've invested a lot of time and financial resources to train technicians. That was one of the requirements. We had to have trained technicians in this technology, to have our own fueling unit, installed, as well as for my time. Okay, so from that standpoint, we have the commitment organization wide, and it starts from the top, that we are in this for the long haul, and we've seen where others have dropped out, where there's only 3 now in Illinois.
Sure.
So we are committed, certainly to this market and to the customers we serve as well.
Could you explain a little bit about some of the tax incentives as a consumer that potentially people are not aware of? I mean, I know there's some various financial incentives that are available that the people are just not aware of.
Well, I can speak to those in Illinois.
Sure.
Okay, from any type of perspective, whether it's a retail or fleet perspective, through the end of this year, there's a $4,000 rebate that comes out of the EPA. That's paid out twice a year, and what that does is essentially the description of that is the incremental 80% of the incremental cost of the natural gas versus the Civic LX.
So that's a rebate directly from the state of Illinois.
That's a rebate directly, and that's paid, and the natural gas does qualify for the maximum, which is $4,000. That's the upside. The downside is that unless the American Taxpayer Relief Act is extended once again, or some of the provisions in there that are extended, that is scheduled to expire at the end of this year.
I see.
12/31. Yeah.
And then when we talk about the incremental cost difference between a normal Civic and a compressed natural gas Civic, what's the difference?
About $7,000.
$7,000.
Yeah, you're looking at about retail list price to list price. It's about $19,800 for the Civic LX, and it's just over $27,000 for the list price again for the compressed natural gas vehicle. So 80% of that is more than the $4,000, so it qualifies for the $4,000 rebate. So in a sense, today, you could get a compressed natural gas vehicle for somewhere close to, when you factor that in there, you're buying it for close to $20,000 with discounts and everything else.
And then return on investment in regards to some of the numbers that you're seeing with some of the fleets that you're already working with is probably less than a year?
Huge, yes.
Yeah.
Huge, yeah. Some of, depending on how they look at it, some of them look at it as break-even point. Some look at it as an ROI standpoint. I know that those fleet customers that we have right now are very, very pleased. Matter of fact, I have one that at one of your events told me that he was getting almost 500 miles to the tank, and I said, that's a little unbelievable. And then he said, well, it wasn't quite 500, but it was well into the 4s. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, that still is kind of unbelievable. That's well over 50 miles a gallon.
That's wonderful.
And that's great from my standpoint. Now, from a retail consumer standpoint, I know that those that I stay very, very close to my customers to make sure that that this car is performing, and it helps me with feedback, that they are seeing very, very good fuel economy. One that actually went to Detroit right after she purchased the car and was concerned about refueling, and I told her where refueling stations were at, and she said, they're not even on the map. I said, trust me, they're here, because I called them. I just talked to them. And she went all the way to Detroit and back and said she had absolutely no problem, and the car performed well. She was, again, over 40 miles a gallon.
That's wonderful.
I don't remember exactly what she was reporting.
So as we end our show here, Jerry, one of the things that so what do you think the CNG market, the compressed natural gas market, is going to look like 5 years from now?
5 years from now, I see a lot of the municipalities and counties converting, and we're starting to see that in the Midwest, in the southern suburbs. They're starting to consider. I've been meeting with and talking with various villages and cities in that. I see a lot of, when I look at the strategic plans that are done, some of the cities in that here in Northwest Indiana, they're looking at those. They're starting to look at theirs, and there's starting some interest to emerge from there. I see the fleet markets starting to evolve. As part of that, what I see is then the infrastructure developing. As that infrastructure develops, and now they are able to provide public refueling in addition to refueling for themselves, the retail market will then start to open up. And when that starts happening, like I said, that's why I said earlier, I see it 3 to 5 years out. This is really going to become, I see it really emerging.
We're really excited about all the opportunities. We appreciate the work that you're doing and Honda's doing. We're really anticipating a lot of growth, not only with compressed natural gas, but with other alternative fuels here in and around Chicagoland area. And we're really excited about some of the upcoming events and projects that will be coming to fruition. So, Jerry, thanks for being on the show today, and we really appreciate all the great work that Community Honda is doing in our area.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure being here.
And that will do it for today's edition of the Green Commuter. I'm your host, Carl Lissick. Thanks again to our guest, Jerry Carducci of Community Honda of Orland Park. And if you'd like more information about South Shore Clean Cities, including our upcoming events, visit us online at southshorecleancities.org and sign up for our upcoming Clean Air Golf Outing, which will be held at the course at Aberdeen and Valparaiso on the Thursday, September 19th. And be sure to tune in again on September 11th for the next edition of the Green Commuter here on the Lakeshore.